G'day, my name's Andrew. A couple of months ago I did a review comparing The Sims 4 versus Second Life and Open Simulator. Today we're going to do Cities Skylines versus Second Life and Open Simulator. Especially since COVID, I've been starting to experiment with more mainstream games. As I mentioned earlier, The Sims 4 was the first one I played with, and then I went on to Cities Skylines. The reason that I'm comparing them with these two games, the Second Life and Open Simulator, is that both of those are capable of direct comparison with Sims 4, and they're also capable of being directly compared to Cities Skylines, because where Sims 4 is very avatar based, the whole game is based around the Sims, and City Skylines is based around city building. Open Simulator and Second Life have both of those components, so it's everything rolled into one. So anyway, we'll get into this in much greater detail as the video rolls out. The goal is to make it easier for people to migrate from one game to the other. This video also slots in nicely with a page on my website on virtual world jargon. So if you hear me use a term that you don't understand, just flick over to that page and it goes into great detail about all the terminology. It's like this giant glossary so that you can look things up and find out what the heck people are talking about, because there is a lot of jargon in gaming, as you'd know, and it can get a bit frustrating. So I'll put a link to that in the description below. Cities Skylines. The game is stored on your computer, however it is dependent on Steam to run, so if you buy the game online or through Steam, it's easy enough to set up. But basically every time you open Cities Skylines, it verifies all your information and does all these updates, security checks, etc. You do play the game on your own. You're in isolation, which is probably less of an issue than it is with, say, The Sims 4, because you're not really in there to be around avatars, you're in there to build cities. By comparison, Second Life is 100% online. You log into the Second Life grid. The only thing you download onto your system is a viewer, the Second Life viewer, or myself, I use the Firestorm viewer, which is a third-party viewer. Open Simulator is a little bit different. If you're not familiar with the history of Open Simulator, it sort of spun off from Second Life way back about a decade and a bit ago. So it does have some shared ancestry with Second Life, but it's spun off into its own thing now. So you can use Open Simulator as a standalone game on your download it onto your PC, for argument's sake, where again you're working in isolation, or you can set it up where people can, you have it on your computer, but then you can invite friends or open it up to the hypergrid to come and actually visit your world. Or you can use the services of a third-party virtual world provider like DigiWorlds. Tightly, there's gazillions of them. But you can use one of them, and they've actually got Open Simulator installed on their system, and you're using their world and their text. You don't have to worry about all the back end. It's a lot like Second Life in that regard. The key difference between Cities Skylines and the other two is that with Open Simulator and Second Life, you don't really have a goal. You're just in there to create. With Cities Skylines, you have a goal, and it can be whichever one you define, but there are goals within the base game, such as build a metropolis, which I think has 70,000 people, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are several levels, and each time you reach a level you're given a reward and you're given some more assets to play with, so you do have set goals. And you usually accomplish those in a couple of days. You'll have built your 100,000 city. After that, you can set your own goals. Like you might decide, right, I'm going to make a 250,000 city or a 500,000 city. So you just keep learning and refining your skills until you achieve that. The characters in Cities Skylines are called Sims, spelt with a C, C-I-M. You don't really engage with them at all. They're in their thousands wandering around and doing whatever the game's algorithm tells them to do. The characters in Second Life and Open Simulator are called avatars. They're a character, but that's where the similarities end. We're not really going to dwell on characters at all in this video because they're just part of the scenery, to be honest, when it comes to Cities Skylines. Traffic is pretty much unique to Cities Skylines because it's a city on the move, and goal is realism, so you're going to have vehicles running around transporting people here and there. By comparison, Second Life and Open Simulator don't really have traffic because it isn't something programmed into the game. The appearance of land in the various games is quite similar, and I found a couple of curious similarities between Cities Skylines and Second Life and Open Simulator. To begin with, they all seem to rely on 4 base textures, which is curious. They all have very similar terraforming tools and terraforming capabilities. You should find going from one world to the other and terraforming to be not much of a learning curve at all. Regarding the way land is set up, you have, in the base game, Cities Skylines, you have 9 available squares, grid squares, and each of those is 2 kilometres by 2 kilometres. That gives you an available land mass of 6 by 6 kilometres. You can, using mods, you can expand that up to 81 tiles, which makes it a very big city. That's worth another video as well because there's problems with using 81 tiles, but we'll get into that another time. But yeah, that's how it works out. It's a 2 by 2 kilometre square. In Second Life and Open Simulator, the default grid size is 256 meters by 256 meters, and of course you can attach more onto the sides of it, and that's unlimited. You can go on forever, so you can have 10,000 squares next to each other if you want to. So the size of the game is infinite. In Open Simulator, they also have something called var regions, which is a variable region size. Some of those grid squares can be absolutely massive. I had one in, I think it was DigiWorlds, and it was 8 regions by 8 regions, so there was one region the size of 64 regions. It was just massive. In Second Life and Open Simulator, the only real physics applied to water is that boats can float on it. The script engine basically says by default, right, that boat will hover at 20, I think it's 20 meters is water level in those games. So the water is always at that height. That's all the water does in Open Simulator and Second Life. In Cities Skylines, it's actually dynamic. So water can be at any height, but it travels down to meet the ocean, which again is at a set level, and I think it's 40 meters in Cities Skylines. It's actually a physical water, which, yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can create waterfalls, etc., and the game can introduce things like tsunamis and tides and that sort of thing. So yeah, very dynamic water. It's very cool. Can be a little bit frustrating at times, but Cities Skylines is meant to develop your skill the more you get into it. So you do learn to manage water, and it can create a bit of fun chaos as well sometimes, in that you might have built your city up to, say, 200,000 people, and you realize, right, I really need to sink that mountain and turn it into a lake for a resort, or worse, you might decide you need to reclaim some water, and the game knows that it has X amount of water. It needs to, if you go terraforming a hill in Second Life and Open Simulator, nothing happens. You just terraform the hill, it doesn't affect the water. In Cities Skylines, it displaces the water, so that water has to go somewhere, and it might flow on. It might create a big wave that wipes out half your coastal community, destroys your buildings and roads, and your population leaves. So yeah, it's very cool in that regard. In world currency, in City Skylines, you begin with X amount of dollars, which the game gives you with each new city. And for every bit of road or each utility that you set up, that money comes out of what your city has. You do have an option to give yourself infinite money if you want to, and not worry about what you're spending, but If you're playing the base game in its usual way, if you run out of money, you'll get this pop-up on the window saying, do you want a loan? And there's a series of loans, and yeah, that's pretty good. I like how that works. Personally, I don't like playing with infinite money because it takes the challenge out of the game. I want to see the game grow under because of my expertise, not because I know how to download assets. So yeah, that's how it works in Cities Skylines. With Second Life and Open Simulator, the money is tradable in the real world, so you can cash out and buy in. So in Second Life, that is Linden dollars, and named after Linden Labs, the creators of Second Life, and that's got a direct exchange rate with the US dollar, and you buy that currency in-game. In Open Simulator, most worlds have in-game currency, usually handled by a third-party digital currency provider like Podex. And again, there'll be an ATM or something similar in world where you can buy and sell currency. And again, that's usually pegged against the US dollar. Not all Open Simulator virtual worlds have in-world currency. Some of them have free content. Admittedly, that free content is usually freebie stuff, so you sort of get what you pay for. But that's the difference in money between the worlds. Game options. In Cities Skylines, there's a separate options tab where you can go in and choose certain things, how the game plays out. I was pleased to be able to use left-hand drive. I was worried I'd have to get my head around driving on the right-hand side of the road, which thankfully I didn't, so that worked out well. There's many other game options there as well. I won't go into them here, but yes, it's a separate tab inside the menu of the game. If you want to look at game options in either Second Life or Open Simulator, you'll find them in the viewer preferences. Okay, modifications. We'll start with Second Life because that's the easiest one. You can't modify Second Life. There you go. Open Simulator, if you're on a third-party grid such as DigiWorlds or Kitely, you can't modify the base game. If your Open Simulator installation is on your hard drive rather than being a third-party installation, yes, you can make mods there via the add-on modules folder. This section really is about Cities Skylines because, and I'm going to get so much hate for this, but after you've built one or two cities, you realize that you need mods just to keep it interesting because, well, I've never, ever played a game that is so dependent on mods. I've seen this comment around quite a bit by players. Of course, you get people defending it tooth and nail as the best game in the world, but if you look at it openly and honestly, it's almost like this game was built in a hurry and the basics are there, but they just, the developers looked at it and went, look, we can rely on a fan base making add-on modules to make this game better. Because the base game on its own, after you get to a population of about 100,000, it's just about unplayable. Logic isn't a thing, like traffic doesn't operate logically. The avatars don't function logically. And if you want to build a city that functions logically, which I'm assuming you do, you really need mods. But you end up relying on traffic control and population control and all this sort of thing for the game to play properly. It's really quite mad. I need to do a separate video just on some of the crazy stuff that they've had to correct. Industries DLC, my God, that's worth another video. Great idea, badly executed, but yeah, we'll get into that for another day. But yes, mods are available for the game, and while I mentioned DLCs, of course you can get downloadable content. Such as Industries and Sunset Harbour and that, which are official downloads from Cities Skylines, and they're add-on packs, much like you had with The Sims 4, you can get add-on packs. Look, they're great too, they are great. I do like the DLC in Cities Skylines, but each of them has their own quirk, and again, that's for another video. But as far as mods go, yes, you can mod Cities Skylines. Uh, this section's becoming bigger than I intended, but the other problem with mods on City Skylines, and I'm not talking about DLC, I'm talking about third-party mods. Comparing it to a game, say The Sims 4, when you use a mod, you download it onto your computer. When you do it in City Skylines, you're just subscribing to a mod that is stored on the Steam Workshop. Now, this happened to me in the very first week that I was on City Skylines. I decided to use a mod, and for whatever reason, the developer decided to take it offline. And because I'd been using that mod, I couldn't get into any of my games anymore. I was permanently locked out of them. I just had to walk away. I had to reinstall City Skylines, and from that point on, I only subscribed to mods that had like 30 or 40,000 subscribers. So it's just not worth using an unproven mod. I don't like the way this is stored on Steam Workshop. I really don't. I like my game to be on my computer. Thank you very much. Sims 4 can do it. For some reason, City Skylines can't. Assets and building. City Skylines base game comes with its own collection of assets, so the buildings and roads, avatars, all that sort of thing, or Sims rather. It has a whole bunch of those with the base game. If you want to expand the assets in your game, you can't build in world, but you can download assets again through Steam Workshop. It can be problematic if an asset created by a third-party creator, if that asset is removed, it can break your game. So use with caution and just get assets that maybe several thousand other people are using so that you'll know it's reliable, that it's going to be there next time you turn your game on. City Skylines doesn't have build tools in world. It does have an asset manager in one of its menus there, and you can play with that, though it's a bit more advanced level than most newbie players would want to get into. In Second Life and OpenSim, your grid normally provides a base collection of assets. If you don't have any, you can import OAR files or make your own in-world using the build tools. In Open Simulator, you can also buy products or inventory items in world from your local shops on the various regions around the grid, or you can buy them online via a web marketplace such as Kitely Market. So there's a few options there, and it's usually pretty easy to find content on the web. So which game is right for you? Well, it depends what you're trying to achieve, really. City Skylines is about movement and having a goal and volume and size, and you don't need to be in control of every aspect of everything. The downside of it is the graphics aren't that good, and if you're a stickler for detail, you will be annoyed by that. You will have days that are really rewarding and days that are really frustrating. But yeah, that's the nature of City Skylines. It is a fun game. I do recommend you give it a shot if you're after something new. Open Simulator, its strengths are its detail and its scriptability, and I don't know, I really love Open Simulator. I'll confess my bias there, but simply because it's so malleable. You can do anything with it. It's not, you don't have all these automated algorithms and AI that you have with City Skylines, but you can build anything. If you want to make a city, you can. You can just take months and months doing it. You can populate it with NPCs if you want to. You can create traffic if you want to. Everything is scriptable. And it's quite cheap, really. You can get a region on, say, DigiWorlds for about $8 a month. Second Life, look, I really think it's the most overpriced game in the world. If you want to own a private region in Second Life, you're looking at around $200 US a month, which is insane. It really doesn't have any advantages over Open Simulator except that you can buy more assets for Second Life. it's a lot of money to pay for that small thing. There's very good repositories of Open Simulator assets on the web that are often free or very cheap. So yeah, I think the days of Second Life, even though the tech is very good and it's still evolving, it's still way overpriced. But anyway, that's the summary. I do hope you've gained something from it. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever, and we'll see you in the next video. Okay, thanks for sharing your time.